Tonight, the final farewells to a fallen cop. The widow and sons of NYPD officer Rafael Ramos grieve at his funeral as tens of thousands of officers stand by in support, amid calls for a city divided to come together.
Wouldn't that be the ultimate honor for Officers Ramos and Liu, that their deaths helped us to all heal?
Mark Albert reports. North Korea gets personal, insulting President Obama. Carter Evans on the continuing fallout from the Sony hack attack. Dean Reynolds goes inside a farm of the future where greens grow year-round without sunlight or pesticides.
We're making nature better.
Good morning.
And a bridge to the past. Kristine Johnson visits an historic, privately owned span, frozen in time.
Have a nice day, okay?
This is the CBS Evening News.
Good evening. I'm Jim Axelrod. It was a stirring sight this morning. Law enforcement officers from every part of the continent traveled to New York City, filling the streets and standing together outside the funeral service for NYPD officer Rafael Ramos. It has now been a week since Ramos and Officer Wenjian Liu were ambushed and killed by a gunman who'd posted threats to kill cops on social media. A week that has seen tensions spike in a city that was already embroiled in protest and debate over police and race relations when the two officers were killed. But as Mark Albert reports, at the funeral today, there were calls to bridge the growing divide.
In a grand procession of sorrow, a streetwide line of blue, an estimated 25,000 officers strong, stood as one beside Christ Tabernacle Church in Queens. Inside, a montage of Officer Rafael Ramos's 40 years of life flashed by. He was killed the day he would have graduated as a chaplain, leaving behind two sons. New York City Police Commissioner Bill Bratton.
To know that we'll never let you be alone again, that we are your family now.
The family of Wenjian Liu, who was ambushed alongside Officer Ramos, was inside the church to mourn alongside Vice President Joe Biden.
So when an assassin's bullet targeted two officers, it targeted this city, and it touched the soul of the entire nation.
At the funeral, both men were promoted to detective and Ramos to honorary chaplain. In an appearance full of tension, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, at odds with many in the rank and file, told the Ramos family, "Our hearts are aching."
Officer Ramos put his life on the line every day so other New Yorkers could live in peace, so they could live in safety. That's what he believed in.
During the mayor's 10-minute address, hundreds of officers listening here outside turned their back, a sign of disrespect for a mayor the police union accuses of not supporting the force and of having blood on his hands.
Commissioner Bratton called for an end to division.
If we can learn to see each other, then when we see each other, we'll heal. We'll heal as a department. We'll heal as a city. We'll heal as a country. And wouldn't that be the ultimate honor for Officers Ramos and Liu, that their deaths helped us to all heal?
The sea of blue outside the church had police officers from coast to coast. Sergeant Art Lesmis is from San Fernando, California.
It's a sad day for law enforcement, but it's a sad day for people as well, because the law enforcement represents the people.
But even this vast show of support could only provide so much comfort to a 13-year-old son who held his father's uniform cap and a widow given a flag representing so much sacrifice and sorrow. Mark Albert, CBS News, New York.
The oldest son of Officer Ramos arrived at the funeral wearing his father's police jacket. At the wake last night, Justin Ramos provided a moving tribute to his dad.
He was my rock. He was a beacon of wisdom. He was my absolute best friend. Dad, I'll miss you, I'll miss you with every fiber of my being.
Justin Ramos. In Cleveland today, thousands of demonstrators rallied in support of cops. The so-called Sea of Blue demonstration was organized to counter protests after the deadly police shooting of a 12-year-old boy in Cleveland last month. Here's Bill Saffos of our Cleveland station WOIO.
The life of Wenjin Liu in New York City matters. The life of Rafael Ramos in New York City, who was executed last Saturday, matters.
A local dispatcher organized the rally and march to say thank you to law enforcement. Many officers and their families attended.
To every man and woman who wears a badge today, your lives matter.
Last weekend, hundreds of protesters here against the police, but as you can see today, thousands showing up in downtown Cleveland to show their support in what really is a sea of blue in Cleveland. It was a solemn, silent march that ended at the city's memorial for fallen officers. Grace Leon was there. Her husband, Wayne, was killed in the line of duty 14 years ago.
I am at awe of all the supports for those that do a job that most of us are too afraid to do.
For CBS News, Bill Saffos, Cleveland.
Elsewhere today, there were protests for two unarmed men killed by police. In Chicago, a rally was held for Dontre Hamilton, shot 14 times last April in Milwaukee, while a crowd of 150 marched in Brooklyn for Akai Gurley, killed in a darkened stairwell in a public housing project last month. Internet service in North Korea took another hit today, which happened as the dictatorship blamed the U.S. for internet outages earlier this week. A spokesman for Kim Jong-un took it a step further with a highly personal slur aimed at President Obama. Here's Carter Evans.
The report today from North Korea's state-run news agency directly blames the United States for the country's internet outage, saying the U.S., with its big physical size, like little kids playing hide-and-seek without any shame, started disturbing the internet operation of the country's major media. The report targets President Obama, who last week specifically accused North Korea of being behind the cyber attack on Sony Pictures. North Korea's National Defense Commission claims the president forced Sony to release the interview, which depicts the fictional assassination of North Korea's leader, Kim Jong-un.
We got the interview!
A government spokesman went a step further, saying Obama always goes reckless in words and deeds like a monkey in a tropical forest.
It's like the terrible twos for them, you know, the name calling.
Stephen Laff is a cybersecurity expert, but while he says North Korea may be diplomatically immature,
they absolutely have the capability to do damage. And when a child has a gun, you really try to talk to them in a different way.
Laff says North Korea has been engaged in cyber warfare for 30 years, but its own online infrastructure is limited. According to a recent analysis of North Korea's cyber capabilities by Hewlett-Packard, the country didn't even have an outside connection to the internet until 2010. As for taking that system down,
when I heard the North Koreans blame the United States, I thought that was plausible.
The White House is not commenting. All that's public right now about the cyber war is the war of words. Carter Evans, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Another apparently unrelated hacking incident is targeting some of Sony's video game customers. The company's PlayStation network is experiencing disruptions for the third straight day. Microsoft's Xbox Live is also reporting some troubles. A hacker group has claimed responsibility. A top leader of the Somali terror group Al-Shabaab has surrendered. Zakaria Ismail Ahmed Hersi, allegedly the group's finance chief, is now in the custody of the Somali military. The U.S. had a $3 million bounty on his head. The Russian economy, already reeling from sanctions and falling oil prices, is getting hit on another front. As Deborah Patta reports, Russians can add major credit card companies to the list of their mounting challenges.
There will likely be very little festive cheer over Russia's 10-day New Year holiday break. That's because plunging oil prices and the falling ruble have brought the economy to the brink of collapse. Add to this the U.S. imposed sanctions over Russia's annexing of Crimea, and it's going to be a long, cold winter for ordinary Russians. As part of the sanctions, two of the world's major credit card providers, MasterCard and Visa, announced yesterday they are no longer offering services in Crimea, which has left many Russians unable to pay for festive goods this weekend. Russian President Vladimir Putin bet his entire economy on oil and gas. But if oil remains below $60 a barrel, the Russian economy will contract by a staggering 4% next year. And with the prices of goods and food already soaring, the economy will continue to deteriorate, says investment consultant Chris Weafer.
We are now in Russia in that situation where it's very much sort of in survival mode.
Russia's financial crisis comes as the region remains unstable. Although pro-Russian separatists and the Ukraine have begun an exchange of prisoners, peace talks between both sides have been cancelled, leaving an already tenuous situation in greater uncertainty. Deborah Patter, CBS News, London.
Gas prices dropped again today to their lowest level in more than 5 years. The national average is now $2.30 a gallon. Gas prices have dropped every day since September 25th. That is 93 days in a row, the longest such stretch since the AAA began keeping records. Former President George H.W. Bush will remain in a Houston hospital through the weekend. The 41st president, who is 90 years old, was admitted Tuesday for shortness of breath, but a spokesman says the former president's condition has improved to the point that doctors are discussing dates for the president to go home. Still ahead, it never rains and the sun never shines, but growing season never ends at this farm of the future. And a failed demolition leads to the Leaning Tower of CRIMEA when the CBS Evening News continues. They're called vertical farms, an agricultural trend which moves the whole operation indoors. Dean Reynolds shows us a part of the growing industry that's growing.
Do not be confused by the drab facade of the warehouse in this Northwest Indiana industrial park. It's a farm, and it could well be the future. You'll find arugula and parsley, basil, kale, and other greens that grace our plates.
We grow 9 varieties of lettuces.
So you're Mr. Salad.
I'll take that. I can be called worse. Here's some cilantro.
He's actually called Robert Colangelo, the founder of Green Sense Farms, and this is how he does it. The light emitting diode, or LED.
It gives you a very concentrated amount of light. It burns much cooler, and it's much more energy efficient.
No sun, no problem. Researchers believe plants respond best to the blue and red colors of the spectrum, so the densely packed plants are bathed in a pink and purple haze, moistened by recycled water, bolstered by nutrients, and anchored in a special mix of ground Sri Lankan coconut husks.
So you can grow plants inside. So what?
Well, we take weather out of the equation. We can grow year-round and we can harvest year-round.
That means that the snowbound Midwest consumer doesn't always have to look to California for lettuce in the winter or any other time. They can get Colangelo's produce at the local grocery at a consistent price.
This Thai basil is amazing.
Scott Hinkle, a local chef, says the sunless harvest tastes great.
Watercress or micro arugula or kale, our blossom salad that we do every week.
With less water and fertilizer, fewer workers, and no gasoline, it's more economical to grow greens this way than on the traditional farm. No bugs here, so no pesticides. No weeds, so no herbicides. And Colangelo really knows his plants.
Do you think plants have feelings?
We do play them classical music just in case they do.
Do you?
Yes, we do.
Is there a composer that they prefer?
They haven't told us yet.
If it's Metallica, I don't want to eat it.
And as to whether he's cheating nature,
we're making nature better.
So let the music play. Dean Reynolds, CBS News, Portage, Indiana.
From a vertical farm to a diagonal building, watch what happens in CRIMEA when the first attempt to demolish this building fails, leaving the condemned tower tilted to its side. The wrecking crew got another crack at it and finally got the job done. Up next, a team of doctors tries to solve a medical mystery in time to save a little girl's life. We've got a medical mystery to share with you tonight, one that had the family of a little girl from Durham, North Carolina named Kara Green quite scared, and the doctors treating her completely baffled. Vicente Arenas shows us how Kara's case was finally cracked.
Purple.
Purple, yeah. 2-year-old Kara Green was a healthy toddler until last November when her parents, Kristen and Clayton, noticed something wasn't right.
Her eye movements were just completely erratic, and that was really scary. You would look at her and her eyes would just move all over.
Within weeks, Kara lost muscle control and became unsteady on her feet. Her arms grew limp, and even keeping her head up was a struggle.
And then we started noticing her dropping toys, falling on her face, not catching herself with her arms.
9 doctors tested Kara for a range of terrifying possibilities, including a brain tumor.
Did you think that you were going to lose Kara?
Yeah, I mean, there were, it almost seemed inevitable.
Kara was just days from starting chemotherapy for a presumed autoimmune disorder.
Can you say hi to Dr. Shashi?
When she saw Dr. Vandana Shashi, a geneticist at Duke University Medical Center.
What were you thinking when you saw all of these symptoms presenting themselves?
It was a real mystery.
Dr. Shashi suspected a genetic problem. Using new technology, Duke researchers sped up a process that typically takes 3 months. In just 3 weeks, they pinpointed a genetic mutation so rare, only about 100 cases have been diagnosed.
That morning, before we gave them results, my heart was racing. I was so excited. I wanted to rush into that room and tell them, we have a treatment for your daughter.
Kara, what is this?
Kara has Brown-Violetto Van Leer syndrome, or BVVL.
Fingers.
As complicated as it sounds, the treatment is simple.
So you're telling us that if we give her a vitamin, that she's gonna, she'll stop getting worse and she might get better?
Let's do your medicine. Can you do your
Massive doses of the vitamin B2 that she lacked led to dramatic improvements.
Jeez.
Now Kara can feed herself and lift her arms.
Good job.
A medical mystery solved by cracking her own genetic code.
Boom. Boom. Yay.
Vicente Arenas, CBS News, Durham, North Carolina.
Still ahead, crossing over, one of the nation's last family-owned toll bridges withstands the test of time. Finally tonight, George Washington made perhaps the most famous crossing of the Delaware 238 years ago this week. But the historic Dingman's Bridge has been spanning that river between Pennsylvania and New Jersey for about 180 years. One family has owned it for the last century and still has the charter that allows them to collect tolls. Here's Kristine Johnson.
Morning, my friend.
Every day of the year.
You want to sign a get well card for Karen?
24/7.
How you doing, man?
There is a toll collector standing at one end of the 530-foot-long Dingman's Bridge.
Have a nice weekend.
Chris Sigia greets
Hey, how are you
drivers
today? Nails look good. Have a decent weekend, all right?
at this rumbling crossing over the Delaware River.
It's unbelievable because if you take a vacation, they'll say, hey, where were you last week?
Most of our employees are local.
Jay Oliphant married into this family business in 1978.
Did you know anything about running a bridge?
I don't think many people know much about running a bridge.
In the spring of 1889, the Perkins brothers, ancestors of Oliphant's wife, bought the Dingman's Choice and Delaware Bridge Company. They then salvaged a bridge near Muncie, Pennsylvania, and moved it here.
It's almost as if this little area here is in a preservative bubble.
We're out in the woods and we do things slowly on Dingman's Ferry time.
Is this something that you feel, though, that America has lost?
Yes, anywhere from hardware stores to small grocery stores to small convenience stores have lost to the big chains and have lost the family ties and connections to things.
In 1836, the toll was 25 cents for a horse and carriage. Now, it's $1 each way for a passenger car.
Oh, big money over here, baby.
One thing you haven't succumbed to is Easy Pass.
Economic reasons as well as staying quaint. It's a landmark. It's sort of like the Golden Gate Bridge. There are no other structures like it.
The saying goes, change is good.
How you doing, Chief? Good morning.
But in this case, perhaps preserving is best. Kristine Johnson, CBS News, Dingman's Ferry, Pennsylvania.
And that's the CBS Evening News for tonight. Later on CBS, 48 Hours. For now, I'm Jim Axelrod in New York. And for all of us here at CBS News, thanks for joining us. Happy holidays and good night.
Hail and farewell, remembering those who left us in the year gone by. Listen for the trumpet, Sunday morning.
CBSN, the new live digital news network from CBS News. Watch it now. Go to cbsnews.com.